A little over a month ago, I asked you to send forth your games to me to check out here on the channel. And oh man, did you not disappoint. With just that initial announcement, I had a plethora of submissions to check out, so I'm super excited that we can do this together. My name is Matt, and I'm an independent game developer. I've been working in the games industry for over 10 years now. I've been making tutorials here on this channel teaching about building systems and tools for games in Unity at an intermediary level. And by far, my favorite thing about running this channel for the past 7 years has been interacting with you, my community, and seeing what you build. So I wanted to be able to help even further by taking a look at some of the things you guys are working on and provide feedback. Today then, we're going to take a look at 3 of the demos that were submitted and see what I think works, what doesn't, and what some possible solutions could be. Genuinely, all 3 of these games surprised me in very different ways. One of which, unfortunately, was just really frustrating and disappointing, but I think it might be salvageable, so stay tuned to hear my thoughts on that. Without further ado then, let's jump in to the first game. Hardwired is a sort of oppressive, cyber-focused detective game about being a man in the chair. You have to connect to different devices and interact with everything using various console commands, and there are all these different monitors you can manage and swap between in order to track everything as you explore the facility you're hacking. This is just a fantastic concept, and I really think you've executed on the core of it quite well. The visuals are great, the music is really solid for the vibe you're going for, and just generally the initial impressions were super strong here. However, I think the onboarding could really do with some work. The demo kind of kicks off with this eerie title text that talks to you and requests help, but then that's it. You're kind of just supposed to figure it out from there, which I'm not normally against, but I went through a lot of trial and error in order to figure out exactly what you're supposed to do. So I was kind of just clicking around at things and hoping for the best. You see, what you're supposed to do is read these notes and then interact with the terminals here, type in a few different commands and read the output from them in order to learn how everything works. Eventually, you figure out that you can get a list of your local directory and start following the clues from there. Now, I get what you're going for here, but I actually think that an initial onboarding phase, before introducing the main objective, could really help ease the player into the gameplay, and also help build some tension and mystery. You could kind of breadcrumb the intrigue to the player and build on their curiosity. I don't think it needs to be much, but perhaps a small phase at the beginning where you're kind of in this normal, mundane equilibrium, just kind of doing the grunt work, and use this to teach the players the mechanics. So for example, perhaps there's a little machine in the room here that's printing some work orders for you. And maybe they're just simple tasks like open your file system, edit this document, connect to this device on the network, and so on. So you're learning a good basis of all of the commands and interactions that you're going to need to perform in the game without even realizing it. You can then slowly introduce the breaking out of the matrix moments with little interstitials perhaps. Maybe in one of the text documents you're supposed to delete, there's some weird clue about the person you end up trying to help. There were already a lot of neat little breadcrumbs like that in the game. I really liked that as I was exploring around and starting to put things together, so I think you could really double down on these ideas and use them to help strengthen your intro. Similarly, when you showed these messages on screen, that sets up for your current objective, there's no way to see them again. So if you misunderstand it or aren't paying close attention, it leaves you back in the dark again. A way to solve this could be to use a system that actually keeps these messages around for later, perhaps the printer device I just mentioned, or some other object in the room. I liked being able to look around the space I was in, but the rest of these objects here seemingly didn't provide any purpose, which was a little confusing. So putting something else in here that actually has functional value would help strengthen this mechanic a lot, I think. Other than that though, the rest of the playthrough was quite strong, and I think you did a really good job of breadcrumbing the player to the next thing they could do. I do think that some of the tasks could be a little deeper though, as once I knew what I was supposed to do to achieve the goal, achieving that goal was actually quite simple. You only had to perform 1 or 2 steps to get there. So providing more layered lock and key type gameplay to unlock the next piece of the puzzle would maybe keep it challenging enough. Also, you have this moment towards the end of the demo where you need to unlock a door and distract a guard at the same time, making use of more than one monitor simultaneously, which up until that point wasn't really necessary. I really liked this, but perhaps introducing some of those concepts earlier would help reinforce this moment, as I was kind of left wondering what to do here initially. Part of that might have also been the cameras though, as I played a lot of the game zoomed into the monitor screens, and I think you're actually supposed to view them from the chair instead, because whenever I was zoomed in, I really couldn't tell what I was looking at. But at a distance, it was a little bit clearer. Again, I get what you're going for, and I really like the ASCII rendering here, but it definitely obfuscates things, so you might want to increase the resolution of this effect and provide a bit more detail wherever you can. Overall though, I had a really great time with this demo, and I think that you have a very, very strong concept for a more interesting game. With a few more playtests and a bit of iteration, I think this could grow into something really compelling, so I'm definitely interested to see where you take this game. The demo did its job, and I want to play more of it. Before we move on, I'd like to take a quick second to thank Unity for sponsoring this video. Unity have just announced that Unity AI is now in open beta for all developers working in Unity 6 and above. Unity AI is an in-project assistant that can help you build better games faster. It's built specifically for Unity workflows, so it can understand what you're trying to do and tailor it to the way that Unity likes to do things. With 3 distinct modes like Ask, Plan, and Agent, you can change the way the assistant helps you depending on what makes the most sense for you and your project. Ask mode can answer questions based on your project, as well as provide explanations and guidance, so it's ideal for getting suggestions on how a certain tool works in Unity or something more tailored to your project, such as issues in your scene setup. Plan mode takes things a little further and can help you design your project before you build it. You can rubber duck your larger ideas before executing on them, and it'll help you build out a step-by-step implementation plan. When you're ready to execute, Unity AI can move from planning into agent mode and start implementing directly in Unity. Whether that means generating scripts, setting up gameplay systems, or even creating a whole new scene based on your ideas. And as agent mode continues to execute, it'll make regular backups of your project, so you can always roll back to earlier versions if you choose to change direction. There's so much stuff in Unity, and it's changing so frequently between versions that having an inbuilt documentation tool with the Ask mode is valuable in and of itself. But I think splitting the assistant up into 3 distinct modes like this is a really valuable feature, and I can totally see how it would help you go from the somewhat boring boilerplate stuff during a grayboxing phase and get you to the fun stuff you can start iterating on much, much faster. Other features of Unity AI include an MCP server to connect external AI agents to the editor through MCP protocol, and an AI gateway tool that lets you plug in your own third-party agents into the editor, if you're into that kind of thing instead. For Personal Edition users, you can sign up to the free 14-day trial and receive 1,000 credits to test it out with. From then on, it's $10 a month. If you're a Unity Pro Enterprise or Industry user, you'll automatically be granted credits for your existing seats, so all you have to do is install the Assistant package to get started. For more information about Unity AI's open beta and to check it out for yourself, scan the QR code on screen now, or follow the link in the description down below. Thanks once again to Unity for sponsoring this video. Now let's take a look at our next game. Switch Track is a sort of tick-based puzzle game where these minecarts move across the tracks and you have to manipulate the pieces of track to help the carts reach the goal. And oh man, this game is so hard to talk about because I found it extremely frustrating to play, unfortunately. Look, it's absolutely gorgeous and I love puzzle games, so I was incredibly excited to check this game out, but puzzle games are difficult to get right, and I think this game has a lot of fundamental issues that it needs to overcome. The best piece of advice I can give to you for this game is that you need to sit and watch some people play it. I'm going to be one of your data points for this game, and not everything I say here will be actionable, but as you watch people play, you might start to see some patterns emerge, and you should address those points first and then test the game again with as many new people as you can. Generally, I think there's a solid concept here. The way you complete each level is to press the right button at the right time to change up the track and avoid the minecarts from crashing. The execution of this, however, leaves something to be desired. Some of this comes down to the level design itself, but I think perhaps the controls and mechanics are where you should focus for the time being. So let's start with the controls. It took me quite an embarrassing amount of time to get through the first few levels because I kept pressing the wrong key on the keyboard. I don't know if it's how you've placed each of these switches in the levels because they change position all the time, or just the keyboard bindings themselves, but I found that I was always pressing the wrong button. Even though I knew which switch I wanted to change, I just kept messing up and found it extremely frustrating. I did eventually realize that the colors were aligned with the face buttons on an Xbox controller, so after plugging one in, I found it to be a bit more manageable. But generally, I still struggled in some places to press the button I meant to press. Perhaps my brain is broken and this is just a flaw of my coordination, but I think changing a few things up could go a long way in actually solving this. Firstly, simply lining the switches up in one place and keeping them in the same place on the screen each time keeps things consistent. For the keyboard and mouse input, I think just letting me click on the pieces of track I want to interact with would help. Generally, I think the confusion also seems to stem from these levers doing different things every time, and sometimes controlling a different type of track each time too, so the lack of consistency there is maybe amplifying the frustration. A solve here might even just be as simple as green controls this type of track, blue controls that type of track, and red controls that type of track. And on the topic of track types, my least favorite were definitely the one that you toggled between. I just found something about the timing of them quite frustrating, and when there were multiple things on screen, remembering which order they were in was increasingly confusing. I actually think the other two are great though. I really like the hold to move interaction that you have going on here. I felt a lot more in control as a player. That said, there were a few times where I felt like I had moved the track in time, but I guess because your game is based on ticks that I'd missed the window to make the change. I'm honestly not quite sure how you can get around this outside of maybe simplifying the order you need to do things in. But yeah, it felt quite frustrating to press the button and have the game tell me I didn't and then crash the minecart. I will say one of my favorite parts of your level design, and something you absolutely need to double down on, is these moments where as a player I get to choose, do I send it this way or that way? And there's a trade-off involved. So here, for instance, either way I choose, the cart will get to the goal, but if I'm not paying attention, I can run two carts into each other. This was honestly the part of the game that felt the most puzzly to me, and I think you could really explore this mechanic a lot further. The goal of the game is get enough carts to the end to win a star. The more carts you get, the more stars you get. And there's maybe potential there to explore changing some of the goal state to having a time to get all the carts over the line, with less emphasis on messing up the exact line and more on optimizing your input decisions to change the loops based on better times. Having multiple ways to solve a puzzle game and then optimizing those solutions is really what I think makes some of the best puzzle games stand out. Think about a game like Bridge Builder or Opus Magnum. Both of these have a goal system that allows the player to just do what they need to do in order to beat the level, but they also give the player a desire to do better next time and make the thing they're doing more efficient, cheaper, faster, etc. With your current minecarts reaching the end system, I don't really feel super compelled to reach the 3-star point, especially if I'm finding a certain level frustrating. I just want to move on. So perhaps there's some way you can mix up the goal state a bit from time to time. The difficulty curve of a puzzle game is really quite hard to get right, and at its current point in time, the way in which the levels are ordered have created a difficulty curve that's very jagged. And generally you want one that's maybe a bit smoother. Which brings me back to playtesting. It's entirely possible your ordering of levels is an issue here, and switching a few of them around could solve most of these things. But it's too hard to know as a single data point, so you need to get this game in front of some more people in order to help figure that out. I think the art for this game is stunning, the music is great, and generally I think the concept is interesting, but by the end of this demo, I never wanted to touch it again, unfortunately. So I really hope you're able to improve some of these things, and I look forward to maybe taking another crack at it in the future. Sorry that I didn't have more positive things to say, but I hope this has been meaningful in some way or another. Moving on to our final game then. In Woof Watch, you're a dog with a mech suit, and you're saving the human race from an AI that's gone amok due to the paperclip problem. It's a run around, shoot things and loot things kind of game, which I'm not usually a big fan of, but oh my god, I love everything about this game. From the sound design, to the art, to the music, to the writing, to all of the juicy feedback you get when you do things. My god, there is so much attention to detail in this thing, and it was just absolutely delightful to play. I made a little dog called Pixel, and I even gave him these cool shades, and ran around mostly slicing my way through the robots because it just felt so goddamn good. And look at this little guy, how do you not want to be saved by him? He's so adorable. This one is difficult to give feedback on because I think technically it's an extremely well executed demo. You have a great onboarding section, it's well written, introduces the controls super well, and sets up a good understanding of the general objectives. I also really enjoyed the little boss fight you have at the end to kind of test everything you've learned. Really perfect type of tutorial for this kind of game. I also loved that you put a reminder in once you get to the game for real. Now this is probably just for the folks that skip the tutorial outright, but I still think it's a great touch. I couldn't quite tell if the level was procedural or not, but I definitely got lost a couple of times and had to check the map to make sure I was going the right direction. I also couldn't tell whether you were respawning enemies or starting with very few and then gradually spawning more and more as I leveled up. But towards the end of the demo, things got quite chaotic at times, and it felt like the perfect level of well mobility. One criticism I have on the level art though are these crates. I think you can do better here. If they're explosive, you could either turn them into TNT or something, or just make them red barrels. It's a universal sign at this point. I think you should lean into that. I also found it a bit difficult to see at times, especially where the level geometry is a bit tight. So maybe spacing some of that stuff out could help a little bit more. It also might be nice to allow the player to zoom out with the mouse wheel and get a bit more of a view of what's around them. I also like the click to reload at the right point mechanic, but I absolutely kept forgetting to reload and ended up defaulting to using the melee attack. So maybe consider an option in the menu for auto reload or something. I also ran into a couple of bugs. I found this drop-down menu quite hard to read, and it's also unclear if these choices were just flavor or actually did anything. So maybe a tooltip or something explaining that would be useful. I didn't want to pick something without knowing what it did and potentially lose out. I definitely ran into a pretty rough bug towards the end of the game. Firstly, that boss fight felt like a huge spike in difficulty at the end there. You might want to introduce some enemies with AoE attacks a little earlier so the player isn't as surprised there. But I got to a point where I guess he just couldn't see me or something because he ended up facing a single direction and I could just kind of cheese him from behind. Sorry, guy. But yeah, overall, I had a really good time with this. I think the demo is an excellent example of giving the player just enough to understand the game, but leave them wanting more, because I definitely want to play more of this when it's ready. I'm excited to see where you go with the game, and I wish you the best with it. And that's about it for my feedback then. I definitely suggest checking all 3 of these games, Hardwired, Switch Tracks, and Woof Watch, out on your own. I'll link all of their demos in the description. Give them a play and leave your own comments down below and let me know if you agree with me or if I was just way off base. It'll definitely help the devs a lot more because a single data point isn't super useful on its own. So yeah, definitely check them out. If you've enjoyed the video, hit the like button and let me know. I'll definitely be doing a couple more of these in the near future. So if you have your own game you'd like to submit for the review, you can fill out the form linked in the description and maybe I'll feature it in an upcoming episode. That's it for now. Thank you very much for watching and I'll see you again next time.